this Saturday, tomorrow, there's going to be 2 marches, as far as I'm aware, and I think it could actually all end in tears. And I'm not. So before we start, I've not advised anyone to go, but nor have I castigated anyone who wants to go. There's a lot of people online saying, don't go, it's going to be bad. And to be honest with you, it's definitely got the potential to be bad. So, of course, on Saturday, the King, the Prime Minister, and various other notables will be giving their, showing respect to the war dead at the cenotaph by laying wreaths and holding a 2-minute silence. And there's going to be protests there in favor of a ceasefire in Gaza. Now, I'm not asking anyone to make a comment on whether they support Israel or Gaza or anything like that, but I think the issue isn't really about that here. The issue really is about the lack of respect for, well, a venerable British tradition. Am I wrong?
I very much agree. I think that the choice to make it on, on Saturday is a very deliberate one.
On Armistice Day.
Yeah, and there have been many different protests that have been on, say, work weeks. So saying, oh, well, it's just a weekend, it's just a coincidence, is perhaps a little bit of a convenient get out. But I don't necessarily know the ins and outs of it, whether they're deliberately doing it or not definitively, but I would imagine that there's a certain amount of it. Perhaps they're trying to actually get some of the credibility of, the armistice event and try and apply that to their protest in trying to make them out to be comparable things, perhaps.
There's certainly a lack of respect. What do you think on this before we go on?
Well, Irish people have always had a kind of mixed feelings about the poppy, because it represents different things in some ways. But, honoring the war dead seems a good thing to do, especially when you're talking about the fight against Nazism.
I think it was World War One, actually.
Oh,
so it's the Kaiser.
Right, okay.
But still, the fight against Germans is...
Yeah.
It's close enough.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I've been in Westminster both times while the recent events have been going on. And I don't know, I'm seeing a lot of white guys, I'm seeing a lot of young white men. I saw an extraordinary thing of a bunch of white hipsters praying to Mecca, which I thought was an extraordinary sight. Yeah. Right. They had rugs laid out and I don't know. I think what it is I think there's an opportunistic aspect to this where a lot of people, Arab people, their kind of what they see as their struggle is being glommed onto by the same kind of people who have been, who spent the last 5 years not working on a way of achieving peace in the Middle East, but have spent that time canceling women.
Yes, there's definitely the Venn diagram overlaps a lot between.
I'm seeing a lot of pronouns in people who are denying what happened on October the 7th.
It is also worth mentioning, I've realised that my poppy is still on my jacket. That wasn't a deliberate choice not to wear it. It's just that I had forgotten to transfer it over.
Yeah, my poppy's probably going to be on for the next 6 months because I'll forget it's there. But I have mine, so another black mark against Josh.
Yeah, they're adding up, aren't they?
So one thing that's really bothering me is the very weak response to this from the establishment. As we see, the Met Police here tweeted out a few days ago, we're asking you not to go. We'd like you to urgently reconsider because who's the name of the chat? It's Deputy Commissioner Ade Adelakan. Okay. Says it's not appropriate to hold protests in London of the weekend. So, okay, that's interesting because actually it is within your power to shut areas of London down. So you could make it that they were nowhere near, but instead of taking any kind of affirmative action, they're just saying, please don't.
It's, sorry. It's my understanding that in London, you've got to apply to have a protest beforehand, don't you? So it has to be approved, which is questionable all on its own, but one has to wonder why they're not perhaps taking a heavier hand, considering that there's already something that would conflict with it in the remembrance.
I mean, if it could be any protest, but you could easily just say, sorry, no protests allowed on this day because of national sentiment. That'd be a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
Protest tomorrow, protest the day before, just not today, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So who is protesting? So the people protesting are the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. And they plan, as you can see, to assemble at 12 noon in Hyde Park and then march to the US Embassy in Vauxhall. Full details of the route will be announced shortly, and they're hoping to get 1 million people because, of course, they had protests a couple of weeks ago. The protest is organized by the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, the Friends of Al-Aqsa, the Stop the War Coalition, Muslim Association of Britain, Palestine Forum in Britain, and Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. And as you can see, they're bussing people in from around the country.
That last one's a little bit left of field, isn't it?
Yeah, what's it got to do with nuclear disarmament?
But my knowledge of London isn't that good because I'm a sort of Devonshire country boy. And so does that go past the cenotaph at all? Do either of
It's
you know?
not supposed to.
Okay.
But as you can see, the full details of the march will be released on the day.
Okay.
So who knows, right? Now, you'll get people saying it's not going to go anywhere near the cenotaph, but it has done previously. Hi, folks. Sorry to interrupt the video you're currently watching, but Bo and I have just finished the third part of a 3-part series on the Duke of Wellington, and unlike most other biographics of the Duke of Wellington, we've been really focusing on his character, because one of the things that I think is really interesting about him is not just that he wins lots of battles, even though, of course, he wins lots of battles, but it's the kind of man that he is, and especially in his later life, because he defeats Napoleon in his 40s and then lives until his 80s, and so he's got decades as a statesman. You get to see a lot about the man as he is there. And this is often just not well covered in discussions about the Duke of Wellington, and so I thought this was a really fascinating thing. I think you'll enjoy it. So if you sign up to lotus.com, £5 a month, I think it's about $7. I don't know, it was about 6 hours of content just in this series that we've done. That's really, really good. I'm really proud of it. And obviously we've got a massive library of other things, or you can buy the individual videos for £1.89 or $2.30, something like that. And you can watch it there. Thanks a lot. They've had previous marches. And one of the interesting things is a former Hamas leader is behind all of this and is going to be leading it. He's the founder of the Muslim Association of Britain. He's a terrorist.
Yeah, and terrorist as recognised, or at least a former terrorist, I suppose, as recognised by the British government.
Yeah, actually formally recognised by the British government. He lives in a council house in London now. He was involved with their strategy as recently as 2019.
Is this the gentleman that got £129,000, I think that was the number, of government grant money to buy his property in London as well? Oh, no, if he's in a council house, of course not.
No, but I mean, we're paying for Mohammed Kathem Salwala, former leader of Hamas, to live in London. That's a bit bonkers, isn't it?
Yep.
Like, what? Why is he here? How is he allowed in this country?
Yeah.
Oh, you're no longer leading the terrorist group. Right, okay, that's fine.
There might be the problem might be that the original reaction to the atrocity on the 7th of October wasn't strong enough. Like in terms of, people, there should have been there should have been a day of mourning. There should have been all sorts of things to mark that occasion. And unfortunately, we've moved so far beyond it now that we've had 3 or 4 days completely dedicated to, overlooking what happened on that day. I still feel like we haven't properly mourned the dead. 1,300 is it?
Yeah.
I've seen interviews with people in the States that have gone to pro-Palestine marches that weren't even aware of what happened in the first place.
There are ones in Britain.
Oh, really? I haven't seen those.
I covered one in Britain the other day. Just these people are, I don't know what happened on the 7th. I'll have to go look that up.
But I've been kind of talking about this for a while because, my hobby horse is the trans issue because of what it's doing to women and children. I think that there's been a kind of collapse in trust in the media because, when Eddie Izzard is on and they're using she, her pronouns, they're literally lying into people's faces. And I think that it's leading to a kind of, everyone knows about faked footage and propaganda and stuff like this, and no one knows what's true. So I feel like we've had this terrible thing of it's a similar thing with the Charlie Hebdo attacks, which is that the bodies weren't even cold before people were coming out on the streets in favor of Hamas. You know,
Yeah.
it's really disturbing the way atrocities don't have the kind of traction that I remember from something like Columbine that devastated us for weeks. You know,
What I find strange is why is there a very loud and active constituency that's in favor of the attackers? Like that's a weird thing, isn't it?
I know. I don't know how you can look at the image of of women's broken bodies in the back of trucks being spat on and not come away at least thinking, well, maybe I'll leave it a while before I go marching for these.
I need to get on Twitter right away and support those people. Yeah,
it's been extraordinary.
Yeah.
I've never seen such a kind of such moral, just a moral failure. You know,
it's a weird kind of moral fragmentation because they do have a moral argument on their side and say, well, look what Israel's doing to the Palestinians. Okay, yeah, that's fair. But it's this very just impenetrable divide between the two that I don't think can ever really be bridged. And then it comes here and we have to deal with it. And it's like, oh God, why do we have to deal with this as well? You know? So anyway, obviously the veterans are like, well, hang on a second. You can't just march past the cenotaph and desecrate it again on Armistice Day. And so, of course, they were warned, well, don't go and stage a counter demonstration. It's like, well, how can you ask people not to do that? You know, that's a ridiculous ask. Of course, they're going to want to.
But there is, I think, we've seen. I mean, I have to say the Let Women Speak events at the very, very start in London. Sorry, of the most recent ones, they were very. The first and second were very poorly policed, and as soon as they kind of got exposed how bad it was, they really stepped up their game, and suddenly they were keeping the protesters a long way away from the women who were speaking. Yeah, they were very, very good.
Yeah, that's good.
But I just think that I was looking at them the other day when at another Let Women Speak event, and I just thought, gosh, they're stretched at the moment, and it's all because of people who want to come out and they really physically want to attack these women,
I have physically been attacked by them myself.
Have you?
Where? Oh yeah. In London and in King's College London.
Yeah.
I was physically attacked by a bunch of Antifa, but it's okay because I took their flag. So I have an Antifa flag at home that I captured from.
Oh, good.
Yes. But
such a symbolic victory as well. Taking their flag.
It's pretty good. But you are right. They are actually violent people. And one thing I can't help but notice on what I'm just going to call the other side of the argument, the non-left wing crazy side of the argument, none of these people have been violent. Even though they don't all agree, none of these people would go out and just beat them.
Sorry, who are you talking about?
Just anyone else who's not the sort of radical left.
Oh, yeah. Like the Let Women Speak events are literally ordinary women who put their hand up and have like 5 minutes to say something. And you would think that they were, you.
But even then, but that's the point, isn't it? Because whenever it's been on our side of the thing, none of our guys have been going out to try and start fights.
No.
It's always been them on their side with their masks and whatever else to come and fight with us. It's like, look, we don't want to fight. We want to be able to say what we want to say. We want, to protest as we want to protest, just like the Let Men Speak events, just like any of these other events, to be honest.
Well, the very act of not letting people speak it's basically a smokescreen. It's trying to create enough chaos that it feels like what the people are trying to say is somehow evil.
Yeah.
So that's why as a phrase, Let Women Speak is so powerful, because what is wrong with that?
Well, I'm married, so I can't really comment.
It also doesn't help that...
Sorry, darling, I'm just joking.
It doesn't help that the media coverage will quite often cover these sorts of things where people are minding their own business, they get attacked, and then the media will quite often paint it as if, well, they were instigating it in some way, even though it was just them speaking their mind, saying what they wanted to, and then people turn up who aren't involved and then attack them or assault them, milkshake them, throw soup, those sorts of things.
Yeah. There's the media, the same media who are kind of allowing this to happen, because they won't interview Kelly J, they won't interview Stella O'Malley, they won't interview Helen Joyce. They don't let any of these people on and the reason I think they won't let them on is because they are all entirely sensible, gentle, compassionate people. Maybe Kelly's a bit pugnacious, but like,
yeah, but that's what I like about it.
Yeah, me too. But they are like, what they're most frightened of seeing is the compassion that they feel for many of the people that they've been told. I mean, people have been told these people hate a certain group of people, and all you hear is compassion and understanding and a desire to help them.
But also the arguments are persuasive. I think that really is it.
Yes.
If you get someone who stands up and says, well, look, I think that X is this for whatever reasons, they know that people are going to be like, yeah, well, I agree with that because that's a common sense position. And honestly, it's almost with everyone who the media demonizes, in some way, that's basically what it boils down to, I think.
That's why, like I did an interview recently, and like all the interviews I do, I'm pointing at things and people just keep looking at my finger, and like
yeah, I know that feeling.
Good way of putting it, yeah.
Feeling.
But the very first thing I said in the interview was, children are being mutilated and sterilized, and like the next thing it's about me, using naughty words on Twitter. And it's like, why did we just skip over the mutilation and sterilization of children? Surely that's like a significant issue with high stakes that should be explored. But they're terrified of exploring it for not just because none of them are briefed, none of them understand the issue. But the second thing is they know that they have been merrily reporting on everything under the sun except this issue for the last 5 years. So a huge medical scandal is underway and has been underway. It's probably destroyed a whole generation of gay kids. And they just, pretended it wasn't happening.
Yeah, we've spoken to many detransitioners. We've had a bunch in to interview, and it's just harrowing. It's genuinely harrowing.
It's one of those things that history is not going to look very kindly on, and particularly the fact that, when I was at university and around, say, 10 years ago, these sorts of things would have been very abnormal. When I was studying psychology, it was taught as gender dysphoria, which is a mental health condition like other dysphoric conditions.
Yeah.
And it was just, it wasn't even questioned.
Sorry to have to drag us back onto the topic.
Of course, sorry.
But Nigel Farage is, of course, quite strident on this, calling the police gutless for not banning the pro-Palestinian march. And, of course, what happens when the authorities fail in their duty to uphold the sacred days that the British have in their hearts? Well, you get people like Tommy Robinson coming out and saying, well, okay, we're going to have our own counter-protest. Again, Tommy is one of those people who I think is just mostly just smeared. I mean, he's got, he's got his downsides, but generally I think that he's not nearly as bad as people think he is. And so him and his supporters are going to go out and counter-protest around the cenotaph. So, of course, GB News. That's weird framing from GB News. Fears grow of far-right yobs clashing with innocent pro-Palestine march. Like, sorry, the pro-Palestine march is led by an actual Hamas terrorist. Like, you can say whatever you want about Tommy Robinson, but he's never been convicted of terrorism. He's never been part of a prescribed group. Like, so, actually, I think he was. No, he was a member of the BNP when he was like 18. So, but they're not prescribed, are they?
I'm not entirely sure.
No, I think
I don't know very much about.
I think they actually stand in elections. But the point being, an actual terrorist is not in some way denigrated by apparently the common sense outlet GB News. You can see the replies to this have not been very kind to GB News. Because that is disgusting framing, frankly.
I saw this as advertiser courtship, really. I know that they have been having troubles with advertisers in the past, and perhaps this would be the kind of thing that they'd say, see, we're not all bad.
I mean, at the first pro-Palestine demonstration, they were literally chanting death to Jews. It's just actually staggering.
The one in Swindon, which I heard, even though I didn't necessarily want to, was the From the Rivers to the Sea chant. So that's been prescribed as anti-Semitic by some.
But the problem is the far-right yobs who just want the cenotaph to not be desecrated.
I don't think it's going to be a good weekend.
No, I don't. Like I say, I'm not advising anyone to go or anything like that. But if you do go, I'm absolutely not going to tell you off for doing so. Sunak and Braverman have both come out saying, well, they shouldn't do this. This is wrong and disrespectful. And it's really interesting because actually it's Braverman who holds the keys here. She's the person who could say you can't have that protest. And for some reason, she just won't use her executive authority as the Home Secretary to just prevent it. And I don't know why.
From my understanding to conversations with many police officers, the police have never been under more political control than now. And so the sort of argument that the Prime Minister couldn't do something is a rather weak one.
No, it just means nothing. I mean, like the Prime Minister appoints the Home Secretary controls whether the police are going to allow a protest to happen or not. So it's totally within the power of the Conservative Party right now to just say, okay, we're just not going to allow the pro-Hamas thing, and therefore Tommy doesn't need to go down to London, and therefore it can just be a peaceful day of remembrance that everyone actually wants.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they can just have the protest tomorrow, the day after. But for some reason, there's not. And I think it is just that people are concerned because other cenotaphs in the country have been defaced with Free Palestine graffiti. So it seems that there is a kind of animus here. And so I'm just genuinely quite concerned about tomorrow. Basically, if you're going, just be good. Act as if you're going to church. Don't do anything stupid. Because no one's going to be on your side afterwards if you do. So just be sensible. We'll leave that there.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Epoch series, this episode on the Duke of Wellington Part 3. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.